Right, so I thought I would do a quick video. So these are some fields local to me, some old farmers' fields. They're still kept by the farmer, but it's pretty much a dog walking place. I just thought I would go through and show the abundance of wild edibles which are here. Now these are not necessarily in order of taste or nutritional value, just as I see them. Some you might see as medicinal as opposed to a food, but I'll go through anyway as and when I see them. And to start, we'll start by here straight away, and we have nettles. Some of the nettles I've noticed already go into seed, and the seeds are also edible. We have hawthorn, which smells divine. Obviously the berries are edible. You can eat the leaves when they're young and fresh. We have the humble dandelion, amazing medicinally. We have hogweed, a member of the carrot family. Personally, I avoid a lot of the carrot family purely and utterly because there are some pretty evil members. That could be sweet Sicily or something like that. I'm not 100% sure. Lots of hogweed, lots of dandelions, lots of nettles. There's hazel leaves poking up there. We have plantain, so greater plantain. You can eat it, but it's more medicinal than a food. The lesser plantain, when I see that, I'll show you some lesser plantain. We have cleavers or goosegrass or sticky grass, the stuff that kids throw on each other. Again, put it in soups and stews, use it when it's fresh and green in the spring. The seeds can be dried and ground into flour, have their medicinal purposes as well. There's clearly brambles, which will give you your blackberries. So just, within 3 or 4 paces there, I've just named, I don't know, maybe 5, 6, 7 different plants. And I'll turn back on when we see some more. So we obviously have clovers, not in flower at the minute. You have red clovers and white clovers, both used medicinally. You could chuck them in your food if you want, in salads and stuff like that, particularly when they're fresh and green. We have thistles. All of the thistles are edible. I can't promise that they taste particularly nice, but they're all edible all the same. There are docks. There you are. So your typical old dock leaves, again, all edible. The most famous for edible reasons clearly would be the burdock. I'll show you some of that when I get around the other side of the field. And here we have lesser plantain. So I've shown you the greater plantain, the one with the big round leaves. Here is lesser plantain. Again, it's a drawing agent, so pulling out splinters and things like that, any foreign bodies in the skin. In my opinion, when you get stung by a nettle, it's not a dock that you use to numb the pain. It would be plantain. The properties are for that exact thing. Right, catch up soon. So here we have garlic mustard, Jack by the hedge. The bottom leaves are more of a heart-shaped leaf. The top ones, as you can see, almost nettle-like, but lovely. I mean, you would put those in a salad. That's Jack by the hedge, garlic mustard. Sorry, I almost called it garlic mushroom. Yeah, lovely. So here we have elder, and as you can see there, it's just starting to bud for flowers, which will turn into the berries. You most certainly wouldn't eat the sticks or the twigs. In fact, you would actively remove them. But most certainly the flowers, you would make elderflower cordial. It's quite common these days to even buy in a supermarket. And then elderberry cordial as the plant progresses in age. Looks somewhat like a wild cherry. The bark is in the leaves, you know, but the bark, cherry bark, is usually striped. I can also see, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get there, there are roses in flower in there as well. Yeah, so we have roses. The main part you're going to use are rose hips. There's more cherry behind as well, I can see. You're going to get dog rose and field rose and so on and so forth as well. Again, the rose hips are packed with vitamin C and so on and so forth. You can make a rose hip syrup. Take the little hairs out, they stick in your throat. But obviously, you know, people put rose water, so you can make rose water yourself out of the petals. People use that for skin treatments and so on and so forth. Right, here we have ground elder. So we've shown you elder. Here's ground elder. Nothing to do with the tree elder, other than the leaves look similar, or the leaf formations. Member of the carrot family. It's an easy one to identify. Tastes very much to me like parsley, although I'm not a big fan of parsley, but I do like ground elder. Young leaves, most certainly eat them raw, put them in salads. A bit later on you might want to cook them, they get a bit tough, but yeah, another easy one to identify, particularly from the carrot family. Now we have birch trees. You can't really see the bark because they're covered in ivy, but the most common one you'll know probably is silver birch. The sap is very much like a spring tonic. I mean, it literally pours from there. You have to plug the tree afterwards so it doesn't bleed to death. But again, at least drinkable. In front we have a chestnut tree, not to be confused with horse chestnut, conkers, because they are not good for you at all. And then next to that, we got the trusty oak, the king of the forest. We all know of acorns, which, despite what anyone might tell you, they are edible, but you do need to rinse the tannins out of them, which not only makes them bitter, but not very good for you either. So you do need to rinse the tannins out. Right next to the chestnut and the oak, we have a beech. And as you can see, the beech nuts are starting to form. They're the small ones with 3 nuts in there. Again, edible, but you will be in a race with the squirrels to eat them, to even find them ripe. So here we have a willow, one of many varieties. I think probably most people are most familiar with the weeping willow. Again, not necessarily a food, but most certainly from the inner bark, the pink bark is where you would get the natural equivalent of aspirin from. Many people think that aspirin came from the willow, but hopefully I'll find a plant and I'll show you a much more potent version of that chemical, and most likely where aspirin did derive from. It's the same chemical, but much more potent. So on the ground here, we have the cover, the remains of, they're obviously dying out, celandine, lesser celandines. Now, as much as I'm including them in edible, you wouldn't want to eat they're usually the yellow flowers which open up. They're the carpets of yellow flowers you see in the woods and on the sides of the roads and stuff like that and all. There's a little nut on the bottom of the root, but still, you would only eat that before it flowers. And again, not something I'm recommending, to be honest. Avens, not sure if they're wood avens or broad-leaved avens, same family. Again, the leaves quite bitter, but you would use the root. it tastes like one of the common spices. He'll come to me. But again, another edible one. So here's a pretty controversial one for those of you who like a bit of controversy. Japanese knotweed. Um, I'm not going to touch it for obvious reasons. There are strict laws in place with regards to Japanese knotweed. I mean, if you're caught taking the seeds home or literally planting it anywhere, heavy fines. I would have to check, but potentially even prison sentences in worst cases. I don't know, but it's very strict regardless. But it is edible. It is eaten in Japan and very much used as a rhubarb substitute, which is what the stems kind of look like, rhubarb. And I can remember when I was a young kid, unknowingly used to chew on this. It was quite sharp, very much like rhubarb. But yeah, I used to have a little nibble on this when I was a kid, not knowing what it was. Hey, Junior. Right, so here we have an abundance of rose. Again, when you know what a rose is like, I mean, obviously the thorns, the leaf shape, but here we have a massive crab apple. Now, you'd be hard pushed to eat them like apples, but if you're making apple cider vinegar, put some crab apples in there. That's where you're going to get your flavour from. Massive tree here. They're everywhere. And another one where I touched on willow earlier and its aspirin properties. I can't remember the name of the chemical at the moment, but here we have meadowsweet. Much more potent. You need the root, and when it flowers, big clusters of creamish, lovely smelling flowers. They smell sweet. And I'm not suggesting it tastes like vanilla, but you could use the flowers as a substitute for vanilla if you were making custard, for example. Now, you'll usually see hordes of this growing up the canal. Another useful plant, particularly if you need an aspirin, which isn't going to mess you up. And if you're into this kind of thing, here's an absolute springtime treat. Probably one of the most tastiest of the wild foraged plants. All of these white flowers, and there are carpets of them, are wild garlic, ramsons. I mean, quite strong. So they're kind of dying off at the minute, but you can use the flowers. So I find that the flowers, the buds, the flowers are stronger than the leaves, and the buds are stronger than both. You can eat the roots. The leaves, I mean, they're not looking in the best of condition at the minute. Kind of easily confused with lily of the valley, which are poisonous. If you're unsure and they don't have the flowers on top, just scrunch one up, because the overwhelming smell of onion is a clear way to distinguish between these and lily of the valley. And I can't imagine a setting where lily of the valley would be this abundant in one place. Literally, there are carpets of them as far as the eye can see. Nettle and ramson soup, absolute stunner, to be honest. If you haven't tried it, get out now while around. Like these ones are looking a lot better, to be honest. I would most certainly use these ones. Maybe not quite from the edge of the path because of all the dogs but getting amongst them, get a good handful of them. Yeah, lovely. I can smell it now just walking through here. It's lovely. So here we have wood sorrel. 3 heart-shaped leaves. I mean, you could confuse it with clover, I guess. Here we are. There's some more of it. Now, whether or not I would have liked to have shown you common sorrel or sheep sorrel up in the fields, but I don't see it in these fields very often. In other fields, it's very, very, very common. I mean, there's an abundance of it. In which case, The wood sorrel is a perfect replacement taste-wise. Looks completely different. I'm not even sure that they're the same family. Obviously, they have the same name, but I think that's more because they share the same taste. It's like a citrusy, zingy kind of taste to them. Quite nice. One of my favourites. Right, so here, probably not the best example. It's not looking very good, to be honest. Just I got out by a thistle. This is chickweed. It's usually a lot leafier, mouse ears, but you can see tiny little delicate white flowers with 5 lots of 2 petals. Tiny, but again, one of my favourites. Tastes very much like peas, very fresh. There are some warnings as to the quantities that you would eat. I believe mainly because of the saponins in there, which is another phytotoxin. But yeah, lovely all the same. Chuck them in a salad, really nice. So here we have, as I mentioned earlier, burdock. Now, although these are the biggest leaves of any plant we've seen today, in comparison to how they can get, these are quite small. Again, they are the infamous burdock part of dandelion and burdock. I'm sure now they probably don't actually use burdock roots in there, but it does. The seed head is edible. They're biannuals, I believe, but the leaf quite handy for things like wrapping fish up in to put on the fire to roast. So an all-round useful plant, basically. So here's another one. You see these popping up all over the fields. This is cuckoo flower, I believe it's called. Again, it's easily identified by the flower, the leaves, and you will get a rosette down in the ground. Now, very much tastes like rocket, hot like horseradish. There are a couple of similar plants. I believe they're brassicas. A couple of similar plants. You've got hairy bittercress and curly bittercress. I haven't been able to find any to show you, kind of the wrong environment. But when you do see them, you would know exactly what they are. And oh, look at that. So, the purple flowers, over by there, excuse me just a second, I get into that. So these purple flowers, I believe, are honesty. Used more so as an ornamental these days. Another brassica, kind of horseradishy tasting, hot. You can eat the seed pods, flowers, leaves, etc. There's quite a lot of that by there as well, in amongst the jack by the hedge. And again, you know, there's what I would consider survival food, medicinal plants, and then there are plants which are just stunning taste-wise. Cherries are growing on there. There's actually loads of cherries around here. Yeah, cool. So here's a little treat. And you know, amongst the avens, they're broadleaf avens. So these, quite a big area of them as well. These are currants of some kind. My guess is they will end up being red currants, but obviously we've got red currants, black currants, white currants. If I was to put money on it, I would say red currants, but I don't know until they grow.